guys, Samantha from JSMR Tutorials here, and welcome back to another Fix That Fail episode. So today we're actually going to be sprucing up, or at least attempting to spruce up, a project done by one of my subscribers, Polymer's Handmade Jewellery. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But you should be able to see the photo of the earrings on screen right now. You can see that they're really cute. They actually look really nice just the way they are, and so I'm going to be sticking very closely to the design, but I'm going to be giving a little bit of my own spin to it. So let me know in the comments below whether you prefer my design or their design, or if you like both of them, of course. So we've got two colours over here. This is, let me just have a look, I never remember this one. This is Blackberry Pearl and this is Magenta Pearl. And all we're going to do is we're going to be folding those into triangles because we're going to be making a skinny blend. If you don't know how to make a skinny blend, please do look up how to make one on the channel. I've already got, I think, at least 2 videos showing in detail how to create them. So do check that out. You'll get a lot more helpful information out of a in-depth tutorial than you would me just quickly breezing through it over here. But basically we're just going to trim them into triangles like so, and we're going to pop them together like so, and just trim away the excess, and I'm just straightening it up like so. Okay, and that's how you would usually make a skinny blend. But now what I want to do is I want to bring over some pearl white, and this was rolled out on the same setting and then stacked. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out a nice thick rectangle. And if you've been following the channel a while, you'll know that this is just me tinting a skinny blend. It's a really nice way to add a colour to your skinny blend without having to mix up a whole bunch of custom colours. So there we go, I'm just going to cut it to the length of my skinny blend, pop it down, and then you would roll it through the pasta machine the same way you would a usual skinny blend, except this time it will be tinted pearl white. Okay, and here is how it looks. Now the only thing the pearl white is going to have done is lighten the colours just a touch. So you can see there, just in comparison, it's just a touch lighter. And the reason I used pearl white instead of just regular white is because I don't want to decrease the mica amount. Again, if you have not done skin blends before, I also have a detailed tutorial on the channel. Just look up mica shift and that should pop up. I go into great detail on how to make mica shifts, lots of information there that I couldn't possibly include in this video, it would just get way too long. But yeah, that's why I've used the pearl white, because it won't decrease the mica content. But yeah, now we are going to create our mica shift. So I'm going to just pop that down where you will be able to see it. Now if you have a look at the photo, the textures that were used, I think she used a paisley effect, and then there's kind of like this square effect in the pearl white. I've decided to change up the textures a little bit. I've kind of kept the paisley effect, but I've gone with a more leafy one, and then I've changed up the square one for a flower one, just because I wanted to try to tie the textures together, because I feel like they're a little bit disconnected in the design. So that's why I'm changing the textures just a touch. I'm trying to stick as close to it as I can while making some changes. But I'm going to use the leaf one for the outside, and I'm just using a roller. All I'm going to do is I'm going to try to roll a nice deep pattern there. Oops, and I can see that got stuck to the roller. That sometimes happens. That's fine. Still got plenty of pattern over here, and that's just because it didn't stick down to the tile. That sometimes happens. By the way, that never happens when the camera isn't off. Excuse me, that never happens when the camera's off. It always happens when I decide to record that these kinds of mistakes happen. It's typical Anyway, so there we go, we've got our texture. Now I'm going to just grab a nice thin blade and we're going to create our mic shift. Okay, I've just got a nice sharp thin blade here and we're just going to trim away the raised surface, like so. Okay. And just do that for the entirety of your piece of clay, just getting rid of all the raised areas. Try to only shave off the raised areas and not dip into the clay. It's a lot easier said than done, but your mic shift will turn out better for it. Like there, I went too deep over there. Try not to do that, just try to get the raised areas. And yeah, just get that, do that for the entire piece. Okay, and there we go. Then I'm going to grab a piece of paper and I'm just going to use that to burnish our texture flat. Well, not texture, our mic shift flash. Because you won't have got all of the raised areas, it's almost impossible to do that, and even if you did, you're going to have a fairly uneven surface. So by taking a piece of paper, you're just going to be smoothing it over, making sure that it's nice and even, while giving it a smooth matte finish with the paper, so that if there happens to be fingerprints, you will be removing them. So there you go, that's pretty much all it takes. I can see I've missed a few areas just around the edges. So while I'm doing that, I just want to remind you, if you would like to send in some projects to be featured on one of these Fix It Fail episodes, please do check out my email in the description below. Just send me through a photo and we can discuss some of the details and you may get featured. So please do check that out if you are interested. And there we go, that should do. Now, just because it bothers me, I'm going to trim away these cracked edges, just because I think it looks neater, and then I'm just happier with the general result. Okay, then let me lift that up and show you that mic shift, and that will become more apparent when you've baked it. Okay, so I've just got it on a piece of paper and I'm going to pop it to the side because I'm going to bring over my pearl white, which was used in the center of the original project. I'm just going to smooth that down onto my tile a little better than I did last time because I don't want the texture ripping again. And I've got some flowers over here. Any flower texture will work. I'm just trying to tie it in with the kind of vine-like effect. And I'm just going to roll that across the surface. And there you can see that one came out better, and it's still ripped at the end there. Don't know why it does that. But there we go, we got a pretty even texture over there, more than enough for our purposes. And then basically what I'm going to do with this one is the exact same that I did with the other, where I'm going to just use the blade and I'm going to shave the surface. Okay, and so I shaved it a little bit, and it's just kind of occurred to me that they just kind of look like blobs, and they've lost a lot of their texture once I've shaved it. So I'm thinking I'm actually going to keep the texture and not do a mic shift. So basically we're going to be reversing what was in the original. So if you look at the original photo, the inside's a mic shift and the outside's a texture. This time I'm going to be going for a outside mic shift and an inside texture. So I'm just pop that off to the side, and I've just got it on a piece of paper. The reason I keep them on a piece of paper is because I don't want them sticking to my tile and distorting. So that's the only reason I do that. I'm going to bring this over, and I'm going to bring over a donut cutter, and I'm going to be using a heart shape. In the original it was a circle for the outside and a heart on the inside. I kind of want to keep the shape consistent, and so I'm going to be using a heart for the inside and the outside. And then I'm just going to tilt it like so. and cut, and this should stick in my cutter. It might a little bit because we're on paper, but it shouldn't. I'm going to tilt in the opposite direction because we're making earrings. And again, this shouldn't stick in the cutter, but we're on a piece of paper, so it might. So I'm just going to lift that gently. There we go. Okay, and then without removing them, I'm just going to bring this one over. And I've got a heart cutter that's the exact same size as the inside cutter here. If you don't want to buy a separate cutter, you can always just grab your donut cutter and cut out the heart using the inside. But I've got a separate cutter, so might as well use it. And yeah, and I'm going to be cutting it out. And you can see there that it did stick a little bit. You should be able to very easily press that out, smooth it back. And I am going to be cutting out 4 of these little pieces. But I will save the last 2 for later because I want to put this on a backing before I do that. So let me bring this back over, and I'm just going to use a blade to just, should be able to just scoop these hearts out. And it's a little stuck to the paper, ironically. Let me just give this another cut. I might not have actually pressed down on it very well because I was scared that it was going to end up sticking in the cutter. How ironic. So let me just press down on that properly. And then that should be able to come out of there quite cleanly. There we go. I just didn't press down on it properly. There, you can see that one comes up nice and clear. Clean, I mean. Okay, then I'm going to grab these guys and I'm going to pop them in, and they should fit just right. Okay, and then in the original it was kind of a bezel. This time around I am not going to be creating a bezel. I'm going to have it somewhat flat. And let me just remove that. There we go. And there we go. So now these guys are going to need a backing, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I want this to kind of be set first because I don't want the shapes to distort. So I'm going to put that to the side and I'm going to bake that for around half an hour at Primo's recommended temperature. And just before I pop that into the oven, I want to make the little bases. So I'm going to bring over our leftovers here, and this should be able to accommodate our heart cutter. We might be pushing it a little bit. We are pushing it a little bit, so I think maybe not use it straight the way it is. So I'll just bring over our shavings from earlier, and just little bits and pieces that we can't really reuse. I'm going to kind of scribble that into a ball. And I'm just going to run that through the pasta machine as is. And make sure that it's the same thickness as your backing will be when you do the other pieces. Okay, and that should work. I'm going to bring that over. I'm going to lay that interesting side down. Place this little guy on top. Bring over my heart. And now this is thick enough that it will stick in the cutter, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it in 2 stages, and I'm actually going to cut it on a tile. And so I'm going to cut halfway through, like so, and cut down again, and then lift up, and that should prevent it from sticking in the cutter. So again with this one, I'll cut halfway through, lift up so that you're unsticking the cutter. Position that back in and then cut the full way through, and that will help it not stick. Then take that off because you can still use that pearl white. You don't want to waste that by leaving it on the backing here. And there you have your little hearts. Pick those up And can I pick them up with my finger? I might be able to. You can also use your blade, but there we go. And you can see the back there, how they look. I'm going to put those in with the other pieces so that they can bake for half an hour, though we don't really need to do anything extra with them, so they'll just go in. They need to be in the oven for a full hour before you can work with them again. So I'll put them in for this bake and then the bake afterwards when we apply our backing. Okay, and here they are once they've cooled. Now they're not completely baked through, so don't be too rough with them because they can break at this point if you've only baked them for about an hour. But now you'll be able to apply them to a backing. So I've got some pearl white here. It was rolled out in the same setting as the backing for our other pieces were because we want them to be the same thickness. And now you can apply liquid clay if you want. I don't really think there's a need to do that. I'm going to press these down nice and firm onto the piece, like so. Make sure that they're well stuck. And then you can try using a cutter to cut them out. But yeah, I'm not going to do that. Generally speaking, at this point, it's better to just go around with your blade and trim it out because your piece can end up getting stuck in your cutter. And then the thing is, it's not completely baked. And so then when you're trying to get it out the cutter, it ends up breaking. So it's generally a better idea to just use your blade. It's easy and quick because, well, your piece is already baked. So you can just use it as a template to cut it out, like so. Okay, and you can leave them like that if you want to, but I personally like to texture my backs if they're just a solid colour. So I'm just going to put the one to the side so that it's not in the way. And I'm just going to bring this little guy over, and I'm going to bring over a texture sponge. And I'm just going to texture it by pressing down on the front, while still being careful not to actually crack it, because I do want to get a texture, like so. And by doing this you are going to have to trim it out again, but I think that's okay because I want there to be a texture on the back. Okay. And again, this is completely optional. You do not have to do this if you don't want to. And so I'll repeat this with the other one, and then I will pop that along with our other pieces into the oven for a full hour at pretty much recommended temperature so that it is fully baked, nice and strong, and can withstand a little bit. It's not going to break if you're a little rough with it. And yeah, that's basically it for the process. Please, if you liked the video so far, consider leaving a like and subscribing. I post videos like this every single week, and subscribing and liking is completely free and it really helps support the channel. So if you did like it, please do consider leaving a like. And if you'd like to see more complicated videos, as I do post lots of other project videos, please do consider becoming a member. There is a join button below the video. Please do consider clicking that. It also really helps support the channel. But yeah, pop these into the oven for a full hour and then we can assemble. Okay, and here it is out of the oven. So you can see that. So you can see how that looks once we assemble it. Now I just want to go over the thought process very quickly, because in the original photo this was marbled, and I can't remember if I went over this in the tutorial already, but the reason I have changed this from a marbled effect to the same, basically the same as the centre of the piece, is just so that it ties up together, because I felt like in the original it was a little bit it didn't tie together as cohesively as I would have made it. But again, it's completely up to you. You could also change this to a marble and change this to a marble. That would work as well. So now I've baked it, and you could leave it exactly like this, but I've decided that I feel like this doesn't pop as much as I would like it to. So I've gone and I've dusted just a little bit of silver paint on the other earring here, and I want to show you the two so you can decide for yourself which effect you like the best. I personally like the silver one the best because it just pops out the flower pattern a little bit, but if you don't like it, feel free to just leave the paint off. You can also try it out and you can very easily wipe the paint away. You don't actually have to worry about it. You can always try it out. If you don't like it, just rinse it in some water and it will come right off. So I've just got a makeup sponge and I've got a little bit of silver paint off to the side here, and I've tapped it onto the sponge. And then I'm going to give these flowers a generous coat. And I keep in mind that this will get all over the pink pot, but that's perfectly fine. You can easily wipe that off. Okay, and you can do multiple coats if you want. That should be enough though. Okay, then once it's dried, even before it's dried, just grab a wet rag or a wet wipe. This is a baby wipe. And just go around the edge and you can clean up that paint very easily. And once the paint is dried, I'm going to put it into the oven for about 5 minutes. The oven is already hot. If it's not hot, you're going to need to put it in for longer. But basically, I'm just going to heat set it. If you have a heat gun, you can also use a heat gun just to very quickly heat set the paint, and that will secure it onto the clay much better. But there we go. I personally think that adding the silver just adds a really nice highlight to those pearl white pieces so that they've got a little bit more going on. So allow that paint to dry, heat set it, and then we're going to varnish. Okay, and then once they heat set, before I varnish them, I just wanted to add a little eye pins. So this one's done. And so basically you're going to pop an eye pin at the top of your main heart, and then at the base and the top of your extra little heart. And so you're just going to grab the eye pin in your pliers like so, and generally I would have it right up close so I can see what I'm doing. This is a little difficult because it's on camera and so it's a lot further away from me than it would usually be. But if you're doing this at home, just make sure that you have it up close where you can see it. And then just twist the eye pin into place. It shouldn't take too much. You can also use glue to stick it in, but generally it's nice and strong in there. You don't actually need glue most of the time. The eye pins that I have though have a relatively long shaft, I believe is what it's called. Some of them, if they're a bit shorter, like here's an eye pin with a shorter screw. If you've got one that's short like that, then I would recommend putting glue in. So that's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, there we go. Now we are going to varnish them, and that's really easy. I'm just going to be using some Varathane, and I've just got the tub off to the side and a nice soft brush. Just grab a little bit of that. Don't soak your brush completely, just get a nice amount on there. Actually, let me move these out of the way. And I'm just going to brush that over the surface in a nice smooth glaze. And I'll repeat this with all of the pieces. And you can varnish the back as well if you want. I'm varnishing the front to bring out the mica particles and also to seal in the paint. So technically if you've heat set the paint, you don't really need to varnish it. That's why I recommend heat setting it, because then, well, you don't have to varnish it. I'm varnishing mainly to bring out the colours. So I'll varnish all the other pieces as well, allow them an hour or two to dry, and then we can assemble. Okay, and there we are after the varnish has dried and I've assembled them. Now I'll skip the assembly process because I've shown it a lot in my videos and it just tends to drag the length of the video on, so I've skipped over that. If you don't know how to assemble them, please check out some of my previous videos on this channel. I show more often than not how to finish everything off right at the end. But yeah, they are finished off. Now in the original they didn't use this form of earring finding. Unfortunately I don't have the same one that was provided in the photo. I think I said video just a second ago, but anyway, I don't have the same finding that they used. You can of course use that as well, but I thought these were the ones that matched the best out of the collection that I have. But yeah, that's my take on the project. Again, I absolutely love the originals. This is just how I would do it, so it's just a personal preference, my opinion. So whether you like it more or not, completely up to you. I just wanted to take a stab at it. Please remember, if you would like to send in some of your own projects for me to take a spin on, please look at the email in the description below the video and send me through a photo and we can work through details. I always love seeing what you guys make, so please do send some stuff through if you want to. And if you enjoyed the video, please do consider becoming a member of the channel. There is a join button just below the video. If you're interested in that, please click there. It really helps support the channel so I can continue making videos like this one. And if you're interested in the tools, I sell them on my Etsy shop, Jessima Design. There is a link in the description below as well. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.